Alright everyone, welcome to our walkthrough of the 22-23 FAFSA process. This video is going to go through a fresh application and complete all of the required sections. There have been some changes to the 22-23 application, so we'll go over those as well. Before we begin, keep in mind that you will need an FSA ID for the FAFSA, and a parent will need one as well if you are a dependent student. If you need more information on what the FSA ID is and how to create one, we have a video on that as well on this channel. You will also need your and your parents', if dependent, 2020 tax information for the financial section on this application. To get started, we're going to bring up the FAFSA page at studentaid.gov. This can be done by going to studentaid.gov and under the Apply for Aid drop-down, there at the top, click Complete FAFSA Form, or you could click the link in the description. Once we're here, go ahead and click Start Here to begin. After clicking Start Here, it will take you to the FAFSA Roles page, which is new for the 22-23 application. What we're going to do is you're just going to go ahead and click I am a student and want to access the FAFSA form. After that, you can go ahead and just click Log in to continue. Once we're here, we're going to go ahead and log in with our FSA ID username and password. After logging in, it will take you to the My FAFSA page. Under the 22-23 tab, it says current application status not started, so we could go ahead and start the 22-23 FAFSA form. After clicking Start the form, it will ask you to create a save key. It is extremely important that you do remember or write down your save key, because if you leave your FAFSA application at any time and want to get back into it and keep your progress, you will need to remember your save key, as that is what you will use to log back in and keep that progress. So go ahead and create your save key, be sure you remember it or write it down, and after that we can go ahead and click Continue to get started. Once you have created your save key and written it down, it will take you to the introduction page for the 22-23 FAFSA form. This is just an accordion style information page, so if you want any more information on any of these sections here, you can go ahead and just click the drop down, but if not, you can go ahead and click Continue and begin the FAFSA application process. The first section on the FAFSA application is going to be student demographics. The first page for that is personal information for the student. Keep in mind that because the FAFSA form belongs to the student, you and your will always refer to the student unless otherwise noted. The first box is going to be your social security number, and that is going to be pre-filled based on the information that you created your FSA ID with. After that, it is going to ask you for your first name, your middle initial, and your last name. Keep in mind that you must enter your first name, middle initial, and last name exactly as it appears on your social security card. After that, you must provide your date of birth, as this question cannot be left blank, and you will enter your date of birth in a month, day, year format. After you've done that, you can go ahead and click Continue and move on to the next page. The next page is going to ask for your email address and telephone number. Enter your email address to receive important information about your FAFSA form, such as your student aid report, renewal reminders, and saved application reminders. Also enter your telephone number without parentheses and dashes, as those will be automatically added for you. Provide the area code first. If you don't have a telephone number, that's okay, you can leave this question blank. But keep in mind that this will be your email address and your phone number. Don't enter a parent's email address or phone number, as it will ask for that later. Don't enter in a friend's or anything like that. Be sure to enter yours. And try to avoid using a school email address. Use a personal email address that you will always have access to. Next is going to be the student address. Enter your street number and street name and include the apartment number if applicable. Use street address abbreviations such as APT for apartment or AVE for avenue if the address is longer than the space provided. Don't provide the address of your school's financial aid office or any other office, and don't provide an address you only use during the school year, such as a dorm or student housing. Some communications regarding your FAFSA form will be sent to your permanent address if you don't provide an email address. Enter the city for your permanent mailing address, select the state for your permanent mailing address, enter the zip code for your permanent mailing address, and for Mexico, Canadian provinces, or other addresses outside of the United States, enter in 0000050 for the zip code. Next is the student residency page. It will ask you if you have lived in the state that you entered in on the last page for at least 5 years. If you have, you could just go ahead and select yes. If not, select no, and it will ask you for your state of legal residence. After that, it will ask you if you are a U.S. citizen. You'll have 3 options: yes, I am a U.S. citizen, or a U.S. national; no, but I am an eligible non-citizen; or no, I am not a citizen or an eligible non-citizen. Select whichever one applies to you, as this question cannot be left blank. You will select yes, I am a U.S. citizen if you are a U.S. citizen or a U.S. national. A person is a United States citizen by birth or naturalization. U.S. citizens include persons who were born in any of the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and in most cases, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, and the Northern Mariana Islands. And this also includes most persons born abroad to parents or a parent who are citizens. You will select no, but I am an eligible non-citizen if you aren't a U.S. citizen and you're one of the following: a U.S. permanent resident with a permanent residence card, I-551, or a conditional permanent resident with a conditional green card, I-551C. Other eligible non-citizen with an arrival departure record, an I-94, from the Department of Homeland Security showing any of the following designations: refugee, asylum granted, parolee. I-94 confirms that you were paroled for a minimum of 1 year and the status has not expired. Or a T visa holder, T1, T2, T3, etc. Or a Cuban, Haitian entrant. The holder of a valid certification or eligibility letter from the Department of Health and Human Services showing a designation of victim of human trafficking, or a resident of the Republic of Palau, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, or the Federated States of Micronesia, or a Canadian-born Native American under terms of the Jay Treaty. Finally, select neither citizen nor eligible non-citizen if you're in the U.S. and have been granted Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, a F1 or F2 student visa, a J1 or J2 exchange visitor visa, a G-Series visa, or other categories not included under U.S. citizenship and eligible non-citizens. If you're neither a citizen nor an eligible non-citizen, you aren't eligible for federal aid. If you have a social security number but aren't a citizen or an eligible non-citizen, including if you've been granted DACA, you should still complete the FAFSA form because you may be eligible for state or college aid. Be sure to check with your school's financial aid office to see what kind of financial aid you may be eligible to receive. The next page is going to be the student education page, where it will ask what will your high school completion status be when you begin college in the 22-23 school year. You will have a couple different options in that drop down. High school diploma means you have received or will receive a U.S. high school diploma or a foreign school diploma that's equivalent to a U.S. high school diploma before the first day of your enrollment in a college or career school. GED certificate or state authorized high school equivalent certificate means you have received or will receive a general education development GED certificate or a state authorized high school equivalent certificate before the first day of your enrollment. Homeschooled means you've completed homeschooling at the secondary level regulated by your state. And then none of the above means you don't have a high school diploma, GED, or equivalent and didn't complete secondary school in a homeschool setting. Next, it will ask what college degree or certificate will you be working on when you begin the 22-23 school year. You have a couple different options, so be sure to select whichever one pertains to you. If you are currently a high school student who will be starting college in the fall, you will go ahead and select first bachelor's degree. Next, it will ask, will you have your first bachelor's degree before you begin the 22-23 school year? This question cannot be left blank, so if you already will have your first bachelor's degree, go ahead and select yes, but if not, such as if you are currently still a high school student who will be enrolling in college in the fall, go ahead and just select no. After that, we'll ask, what will your college grade level be when you begin the 22-23 school year? You have a couple different options here, such as never attended college first year or attended college before, all the way down to second year, third year, fourth year, etc. So again, be sure to just select whichever one pertains to you. This question cannot be left blank, and keep in mind that grade level doesn't mean the number of years you have attended college, but refers to your grade level in regard to completing your degree or certificate. A student who isn't enrolled full-time will require more years than a student to reach the same grade level, so be sure to keep that in mind. Next, it will ask you if you are interested in being considered for work study. Work study is a state or federally funded part-time job where students can earn up to their work study award amount. I always recommend all students do select yes no matter what, because selecting no or don't know does waive your eligibility to be considered for work study. So be sure to select yes so you can have that chance of receiving a work study award. Keep in mind that selecting yes does not guarantee that you will receive a work study award. Next is the Student Selective Service page. Your gender is used to determine if you need to register with the Selective Service system. Your registration status with the Selective Service system no longer affects your eligibility to receive federal student aid. That is one of the new changes to the 22-23 application. However, you still can register through the FAFSA form. It will ask you if you are male or female. That does refer to what you were assigned at birth. If you are male, it will ask you if you are currently registered with the Selective Service system. If you are not, it will ask you if you want the FAFSA form to register you with the Selective Service system. If you do select no, you will have to go in at a later time and register yourself, but if you select yes, then it will go ahead and do that for you. Next, it will ask you for the student driver's license number. Enter your driver's license number if you have one, but this field is not required, so if you don't have a driver's license, you could go ahead and leave this page blank and go ahead and continue on to the next one. On the next page, the first question will ask you if you are a foster youth or if you were in the foster care system at any time, so go ahead and select whichever one applies to you. Next, it will ask you for the highest school completed by parent 1 and parent 2. So you're going to go ahead and select the answer that best describes your parent's highest level of education completed. This question is used for state scholarship purposes only and doesn't affect your eligibility for federal student aid. For this question, parent means your birth or adoptive parent. Don't answer this question about a step-parent, legal guardian, or foster parent. So you can go ahead and just select which best applies to them and go ahead and click continue to move on to the next page. That wraps up the student demographics section and moves us on to the school selection section. This first page will ask you to add your high school. You could do so by selecting your state from this drop-down menu. After that, go ahead and type in your city, type in your high school name, and select search. It will bring up a list of school that matches the information that you entered in. So from there, find your high school, click the little blue circle, and from there you go ahead and click continue and move on to the next page. From here, you will confirm your high school. Go ahead and just review this information is accurate. And after that, once again, click continue and move on to the next page. Next, it will bring you to the college search page where you enter in colleges that you want your FAFSA application sent to. This page is where you'll search for colleges where you'd like your FAFSA application sent to, and you could add up to 10 colleges at a time. Make sure that you do add all colleges you're interested in, even if you haven't applied or been accepted yet. So you have a few different options for adding colleges. You could either search the school by the name, city, or state, or you could enter the school's federal school code. That is the quicker and easier way. So for example, New Mexico State University's federal school code is 002657. So go ahead and enter that in, hit search, and then from there you go ahead and select New Mexico State University. Or if you don't know your school's federal code, that's okay because you can search for the school as well. You'll do this similar to how you search for your high school. Go ahead and just enter in your state, city, and school name, and you could go ahead and select search. Keep in mind that there may be multiple campuses for the same school, so be sure that you do look through the list and select the school that you are meaning to select. So if you look through here, we have New Mexico State University, but we also have New Mexico State University Carlsbad, Grants, and Doña Ana College. So if you want your FAFSA application sent to all of those schools, you could check off those boxes as well. Or if you only want it sent to one, select that school, come down and hit continue. After that, it will ask you for your housing plans for your selected colleges. For each school listed, select the appropriate housing plan from the drop-down list. You have on-campus, with parent, or off-campus. If you're not sure which one to select, yes, I always do recommend that you select on-campus. After you have selected your housing plan for each of your selected students, you can go ahead and click continue and move on. That is the last page for the school selection section for this FAFSA application, and that moves us on to section 3, which is dependency status. Next, it'll ask you for the student marital status, and it'll ask you, what is your marital status as of today? This question can't be left blank, so be sure to select the answer that describes your marital status as of the day that you are submitting your FAFSA form. If your marital status has changed or will change since the time the application was initially submitted, check with your college's financial aid office to see how that may affect things. Married or remarried doesn't mean living together unless your state of legal residence recognizes the relationship as a common law marriage. For FAFSA purposes, a married couple is separated if the couple is considered legally separated by a state, or if the couple is legally married but has chosen to live separate lives, including living in separate households as though they weren't married. If you and your spouse are separated but living together, select I am married/remarried, not I am separated. Keep in mind that when two married persons live as a married couple but are separated by physical distance or have separate households, they are considered married for FAFSA purposes. So go ahead and select which best pertains to you on the day that you are filling out the FAFSA, and then go ahead and click continue. Next, this page will ask if you, the student, has dependents. Select yes if you have children and they're receiving more than half of their support from you, or select yes if you're expecting a child who will be born before or during the award year, and if you will provide more than half that child's support. Otherwise, select no if you don't have children. Also select no if your children aren't receiving more than half their support from you. Next, it will just ask you if you have any other dependents other than children. So select yes if other people who aren't your children or spouse live with you. These other dependents must also be receiving more than half of their support from you and will continue to receive more than half their support from you. Or select no if you don't have other dependents. Or select no if you do have dependents but they aren't receiving more than half of their support from you. After that, you can go ahead and just click continue and move on to the next page. Next is the student dependency questions, where you will answer the following questions to determine if you are required to provide information about your parents. What you'll do is go ahead and read through this form and select all that may apply to you. First one being, are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training? If that applies to you, go ahead and check it off. If not, just leave it blank. Next, are you a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? After that, at any time since you were age 13, were both your parents deceased? Were you in foster care, or were you a dependent or ward of the court? Next is, as determined by a court in your state of legal residence, are you or were you an emancipated minor? Last one, does someone other than your parent or step-parent have legal guardianship of you as determined by a court in your legal state of residence? If any of these apply to you, go ahead and check them off. But if they don't apply to you, you will just check off none of the above and hit continue. Next, it will ask you if on or after July 1st, 2021, were you homeless or were you self-supporting and at risk of being homeless. For the sake of the FAFSA application, homeless means lacking fixed, regular, or adequate housing. You may be homeless if you're living in shelters, parks, motels, hotels, public spaces, camping grounds, cars, abandoned buildings, or if you're temporarily living with other people because you have nowhere else to go. Also, if you're living in any of these situations and fleeing an abusive parent, you may be considered homeless even if your parent would otherwise provide a place to live. Select yes if any of these apply to you, or select no if you're not at risk of being homeless. Depending on what you select here, a few of the following screens may be a little different for everyone. Next, it will ask you if you will provide information about your parents. Based on the information that you entered in on the previous pages, it will have determined if you are considered dependent or independent. It will say which you are right here. Keep in mind that if you are dependent, you will be required to include your parents' information on this FAFSA application. So select which applies to you, and from there go ahead and click continue. That completes the dependency status section and moves us on to the parent demographic section. This first page is purely informational, and it is on whose information should you provide. This is another accordion style drop down menu, so you could click any of these to receive more information. After you've read through this, go ahead and click continue to move on to the next page. Next, it will ask you for your parents' marital status, and that is asking as of today, as in the day of which you are filling out your FAFSA application. You have a couple different options such as never married, unmarried but living together, married or remarried, divorced or separated, or widowed. Depending on what you select, it will ask you an additional question. So if you select married or remarried, it will ask you for the month and year your parents got married or remarried. Or if you enter in something such as divorced or separated, it will ask you again for the month and year that your parents became divorced or separated. And then if you are only living with one parent, it will ask you which parent's information that you will be providing. So go ahead and just enter in that information and then move on to the next section. Next is going to ask you for information about your parents, beginning with their social security number, exactly as it appears on their social security card. Enter this number without any dashes. If your parent does not have a social security number, then enter in all zeros for this field. Next, it will ask you for your father's last name, their first initial, their date of birth, and their email address. If your parents have an email address and would like to be notified by email when your FAFSA form is processed, that is where you can enter in their email address. Similar to how it asked you questions to determine your residency, it will ask you the exact same questions about your parents. So it will ask you if your parents have lived in the same state for at least 5 years. If they have, select yes. If not, then you'll select no and enter in the information about their state of legal residence. This next page will ask you to enter information on your parents' dependents. The first question will ask how many other dependent children your parents have. Be sure that you do not include yourself, the student, on this page. So if your parents have additional dependents other than you, you will enter in that number right here. If not, you will go ahead and just enter in a 0. And then it will ask how many other dependents do your parents have. If your parents have additional dependents who are not their children, you will enter in that number here. But if not, go ahead and just enter in a 0 and continue on to the next page. If you entered in information that your parents do have additional dependents other than you, it will then take you to the parent household information page where it will calculate your household size. On this page, you will have a box where you include the number in college. On this section, you will include yourself and any other of your parents' dependents, but do not include your parents. Again, you will include yourself and any other of your parents' dependents who are in college, but do not include your parents if they are in college. So that wraps up the parent demographic section and moves us on to the parent financial section. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this FAFSA application, the 2223 form, will be using tax information from 2020. So this first question will be on your parent tax filing status. It will ask you for 2020 what your parents' IRS income tax return status is. They'll have a couple different options: already completed, will file, or not going to file. If you select already completed, it will ask you what type of income tax return did your parents file for 2020. Again, you'll have a couple different options: IRS 1040, foreign tax return, or a tax return with Puerto Rico. So again, select whichever one best applies, and then it will ask you what your parents' tax filing status was according to their tax return. If you don't know where to find information on your or your parents' taxes moving forward, you could always click the little question mark next to the question. It will bring up this little pop-up, and if you scroll down, it will show you where on your tax returns you could find the information that it is asking for. So go ahead and select the tax filing status that is on your parents' tax returns. Once you enter in this information, it will determine if you are eligible to use the IRS data retrieval tool or not. What the IRS data retrieval tool is it is a tool that will link your parents' taxes directly to your FAFSA application, so it will import all of their tax information and it will save you a lot of time. So if you are eligible to use the IRS data retrieval tool for either yourself or your parents, it is strongly recommended that you do continue and select yes, that you do want to use the IRS data retrieval tool. Now, because I'm recording this using a demo FAFSA application, it won't actually let me use the IRS data retrieval tool. That's why it says I'm not eligible. But if you are eligible, it will give you the option to link to the IRS. Like I said, I do highly recommend that everybody does try to use the IRS data retrieval tool if they are eligible. It will just ask you for the information that you did file your taxes under, such as your name and address. Be sure to try and get the IRS data retrieval tool to work a couple times. If at first it doesn't work, there may just be an issue with how you typed in your address. Maybe in the data retrieval tool you abbreviated Avenue, but on your taxes you actually spelt it out. So be sure to try a couple different things if the IRS data retrieval tool isn't working for you at first. If you can't get it working, or if you weren't eligible to use the IRS data retrieval tool, then you will have to continue on and begin entering in your tax information manually. Now, if you were able to use the IRS data retrieval tool, then it will automatically have pulled all of this information from the IRS, but if not, you will have to enter in this information manually, and you will have to find the information that it is asking for on your tax returns. As I mentioned earlier, if you are having a hard time finding any information on your tax returns, go ahead and just click the little question mark. It will bring up this pop-up, and it will show you where on your tax returns you could find what information that you are looking for. To briefly go over what the different financial sections are and what it will ask for, the first one, it will ask for your parents' adjusted gross income for 2020, which can be found on IRS Form 1040, line 11, or you could again click the question mark to see where that is. Next, it will ask you how much your parents earned from working, which includes their wages, salaries, and tips. This amount can be found from IRS Form 1040, line 1, plus Schedule 1, lines 3 plus 6, plus box 14 of the Schedule K1. Continuing on, it will ask you if your parent has a simplified path determination. It will ask you if your parents filed a Schedule 1 to report unemployment compensation, educator expenses, IRA deduction, student loan interest deduction, or Alaska Permanent Fund dividend. If your parents did file a Schedule 1, go ahead and select yes, but if not, or if you don't know, select no and continue on. Next, we'll ask you for the amount that your parents paid in income tax for the year. Keep in mind that the amount they paid in income tax cannot exceed their adjusted gross income. So if, again, you don't know where to find their income tax, click that little section mark and it will show you where you could find that information on your taxes. Next, I'll ask you some additional questions about your parents' taxes. This page will ask you about combat pay or special combat pay, student college grant and scholarship aid that was reported to the IRS in your parents' income, education credits, untaxed portions of IRA distributions, IRA deductions and payments to self-employed, and tax-exempt interest to income form IRS 1040 line 2A. If any of these numbers apply, be sure to enter in those amounts, but if not, you could just keep the zeros that are in any of those forms and click continue. Next, it will ask you some additional questions such as any child support that your parents paid, earnings from work under a cooperative education program offered by a college, and taxable earnings from need-based employment programs such as federal work-study and need-based employment portions of fellowships and assistantships. Keep in mind that this is still your parent financial info, so if none of this applies to them, you could just keep the zeros and continue on. Finally, it will ask you for information about your parents' untaxed income. First question will ask you about child support received for all children. Next, it will ask for housing, food, and other living allowances paid to members of the military, clergy, and others. Next, it'll ask you for payments to tax-deferred pension and retirement savings plans. After that, we'll ask you about veterans' non-deduction benefits such as disability, death pension, or dependency and indemnity compensation. And finally, it'll ask for other untaxed income reported such as workers' compensation, disability benefits, etc. Again, if none of this applies to your parents, you could just keep the zeros and continue on. Finally, it will ask you some questions about your parents' assets. The first question asks, as of today, what is your parents' total current balance of cash, savings, and checking amounts from their accounts? Next, it will ask, as of today, what is the net worth of your parents' investments, including real estate, but not including their home? Finally, it will ask, as of today, what is your parents' net worth of their current businesses or investment farms? Don't include a family farm or a family business with 100 or fewer full-time or full-time equivalent employees. The family farm or family business will have to have greater than 100 full-time or full-time equivalent employees to be added under the assets for this section. After that, continuing on, and that will complete the parent financials section on this application. This brings us to the last section of the FAFSA form, which is the student financials, and it will ask you the exact same questions that it asked you for the parent section, beginning with if you have completed your IRS income tax return or other tax returns for 2020. If you are a current high school student and you haven't worked while in school or you haven't filed taxes, that's okay because you do have the option to select not going to file. So select whichever best pertains to you. Just like for your parents, you may be eligible to use the IRS data retrieval tool. So if you do have that option, it is highly recommended that you do use it and you do try to get it to work. Again, if it may not work straight away, keep on trying. Try it a couple times to get it to work. But if you aren't eligible and if you don't get the IRS data retrieval tool working for you, then you will have to enter in your tax information yourself. Just like with your parents, it will ask you the exact same questions, such as how much you earned from working, and then additional student financial info. Again, if none of this pertains to you, you could just leave the answer as 0. Again, same questions that asked your parents, you could just enter in zeros if it doesn't apply to you, and then it will ask you the exact same assets questions. As of today, what is your total current balance of cash, savings, and checking accounts? As of today, what is your net worth of your investments? And as of today, what is the net worth of your current businesses? Earlier, you did it for your parents, but keep in mind, currently this is about you, the student. Now, if you had any errors in your FAFSA application, it will bring you to this page that says verification required, and it'll describe what the following errors were. So you go ahead and select check for errors, and you could go back and correct any errors that may have happened in your application. You could correct those errors on that page, and then clicking check for errors will take you to the FAFSA summary page. The FAFSA summary page gives you a chance to review your application and all the information you entered before you sign and submit. So you go ahead and scroll down through each of the sections, review all of the information that you entered, make sure you didn't make any mistakes, make sure you entered everything how you wanted to. Once you've scrolled through everything and reviewed each of the sections, you do have the option to print this page, or you can continue on to section 7 where you will sign and submit your application. Before you are able to sign and submit your FAFSA application, you will have to read and accept these terms and conditions, so be sure that you do read through each of these, read through each line, each section, and then if you do agree to the terms outlined above, go ahead and check I agree, and then you can continue on. Once you are on the Sign and Submit Signature Options page, it will ask you to once again enter the student's FSA ID to be able to electronically sign your FAFSA application. This is the same FSA ID that you initially used to log into your FAFSA application at the beginning of the process, so just enter in that information once again and then select Sign this FAFSA form. After you sign your FAFSA application with your FSA ID, your parent will then need to do the same with their FSA ID. Again, they'll have to read through and accept some terms and conditions, and then log in with their FSA ID to sign your FAFSA before you submit it. If your parent was unable to create an FSA ID because they were not a U.S. citizen and because they did not have a social security number, that's fine. Go ahead and just click Other Options to sign and submit, and then from here you will print a signature page. You'll go ahead and print this page. Your parent will have to fill it out, sign it, and then you will have to mail it in. After you and your parent both have signed your FAFSA application with their FSA IDs, you can go ahead and submit your FAFSA application. As long as there were no errors, your FAFSA application will submit, and then you will get a copy of your student aid report. You can print your student aid report, and it is important to keep a copy of it, as some scholarships may ask for information on your student aid report. That completes our FAFSA walkthrough guide. That was the entire process. If you have any additional questions about the FAFSA or need additional help, be sure to check out the additional resources and media we have created for this year's FAFSA.